Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfiel, and I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. And yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creatives, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Melissa, and this week we are going to be talking about one of my personal favorite topics, email marketing. So if you have followed the podcast for any length of time, then you know that I do newsletter content writing for clients in the food niche. And my guest today is Trina Waller from Redemption Marketing. She is an expert in email marketing and digital sales funnels. And we are going to dive into the basics of getting started with email marketing. So we're not going to get into anything too technical or complicated today, but we are going to just get you started on the right foot. So welcome to the show, Trina.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here, Melissa.
I am excited to have you here. And before we get into the interview, let's get to know Trina a little bit better. She is a digital marketing consultant and self-proclaimed marketing geek based out of Abbotsford, BC. For the last 11 years, she's been creating highly effective and profitable email marketing campaigns for local and international brands, all from home in her PJs. My favorite way to work. As an email marketing and sales funnel expert, her favorite saying is, email is not dead. You've just been taught how to do it wrong. And fed up with all the misinformation circulating out there, and there is a lot of it, she's committed to helping entrepreneurs and small businesses learn how to leverage the power of email and digital sales funnels without annoying your readers or compromising your integrity, which I think is going to be a big part of today's discussion.
Absolutely.
In 2018, she created the Redemption Marketing brand to do exactly that, and that's where we're going to get started today. So before we go too far, Trina, the first question I ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, did you feel like you were creative as a kid?
I was such a creative kid. I was a very introverted child. I'm still rather introverted. So I was always coming up with different ways to entertain myself, and books were my thing. Like, I loved reading. So I was always creating new stories and writing books. I actually wrote my first book at about 8, and I designed all my own covers and the back cover. I even put little dedications. I put dedications in them. And then I made copies of them. I hand wrote and drew copies of them for all my friends and family. So yeah, definitely a very creative child.
Oh my God, I love it. I did the same. I wrote a book when I was 7. I was in love with the Mr. Man books. They weren't really too available in Canada, but my British relatives used to send them over. So my first book that I wrote was Mr. Tidy. I drew the pictures and everything. So I still have it somewhere.
Yes, I still have a copy of my own book somewhere too.
Put it on your bookshelf. So did you carry that love of writing through into your teen years and as an adult? Is that something that stuck with you?
I did. I have actually, I've written, and it was my goal when I grew up to be a writer and an editor. And that was the direction that my schooling took. That was the direction that my entire life took. I've had a couple of things published in various newspapers, local newspapers, international magazines, international book collaborations. And that brought me a little bit of fame, a little bit of notoriety, I guess, especially locally. And I really didn't like it. So I kind of stopped. I didn't like that at all. I wasn't prepared for, being recognized on the street, or, having people just kind of stare at you. And as an introvert, it makes you uncomfortable when people are staring at you anyways. Yes. So when you know that there's a reason, like, they're like, oh, do I recognize that person? I'm like, who is that person? Because they'd seen my face in magazines and newspapers and stuff. And I was like, okay, no, I can't do this. Like, I'm way too private. So yeah, I kind of stopped doing that. And I haven't written anything in, 12 years.
Oh, that's too bad. I get it, though. I think we all tend to think that it would be really nice to be famous and all that, but when you get a little touch of it, it can be very uncomfortable.
It really was. It really was. I didn't like it at all. So
yeah, it's I think it takes a certain type of personality to adjust to that well. It can be very tricky and awkward. And I think for us introverts, we are quite happy being behind a screen. So
yes.
What led you in the direction of where you are today into email and digital marketing? Did that, because I can see that being very connected to writing, to be honest.
Well, it is. And I started writing, I haven't written like for myself, but I've been writing blog posts and content for almost my entire career. Right back to corporate. So I ended up getting I got thrown into a couple of corporate positions in a marketing role. And I didn't want to do it, but because they knew that I could write, they wanted me to write content. So which ended up leading into different, oh, well, you just throw up this email. So I really just kind of fell into it. But I really loved it. I really, really loved it because it gave me an outlet to be creative. I didn't have to be front and center. Like my voice, I could create a voice for whatever type of campaign I was creating, for whatever business I was creating it for. And it was still me, but it didn't have to be the face of it.
Yeah. There's something about marketing, to me, is such a creative outlet. Actually, it's such a creative profession, and you really do have the opportunity. It's almost like being an actor behind the scenes. You get to take on different personas.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so I can totally see how that would fit in. And eventually you decided to go out on your own and start your own business, which I think many of us do at some point.
I did. I actually didn't really have much of a choice. It wasn't something that I had aspired to do or anything like that. But the end of the 2008 recession, the company that I was working for, a really great, fantastic company, was hit really, really hard. I'd also had a maternity leave. So at the end of my maternity leave, they didn't have a job for me to go back to.
Yeah.
I'd also gone through a divorce in the middle of my maternity leave. So here I was with two kids, and I couldn't find a job that would support us. So I went, well, hey, everybody else is kind of doing this. I wonder if I can do this too. So I just started peddling my services.
Life is funny that way. I think sometimes we need big change, and sometimes that change is really miserable and uncomfortable and not fun, but it pushes us in the direction that we were meant to go.
Well, and I had to make it work. Like I really, and that was something that I didn't have the luxury because I didn't have a job, right? My maternity leave was ending. I'm like, okay, well, I got to make this work, or like it's this or nothing. So I just pushed through, and I ended up getting my first client within the first 3 months, and never looked back.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'm always happy to hear that. So tell us a little bit more about what redemption marketing does. Like, what is it that you do every day for your clients?
For the most part, I build large-scale email marketing campaigns and digital sales funnels for clients. This is my core service. The clients that I build for are medium-sized businesses. They're pulling in on average $1 to $2 million in revenue a year. They don't inspire me anymore. And I've run into this a couple of times. I'm really, really good at creating various campaigns and everything, but I find that they're all kind of the same. Especially for the larger clients. They all want the same thing. They are all looking for the same objective. And because I can kind of do this on autopilot, it doesn't bring me excitement or joy anymore.
It's a little bit cookie cutter.
It's a little bit cookie cutter. Yeah. So this is what my team and I do is we build these email marketing campaigns, and we build sales funnels and web pages and all of this stuff. The thing that keeps me motivated is actually my small business clients. The ones that, generally can't afford to pay a big marketing agency to build these things. Right. So I kind of take them under my wing and teach them how to do it. And I've been teaching, individually one-on-one for about 4 years now. And it's become not overwhelming, but the demand has been increased a great deal. So I'm finding the one-on-one it's become a little bit too much, and it's taking me away from my bigger projects, which I still need to manage. Like, right. My team is not they're very, very well versed in what I need them to do, but they still don't know all the ins and outs.
Right.
So I still have to manage a lot. I'm trying to create, and I'm in the process of creating a bunch of different group coaching, group courses, some DIY stuff.
This gives you the opportunity to help more small businesses with less of your time.
Yes, and it's not that I don't want to invest more of my time, but my time is limited. Like everybody's.
Well, that's part of being self-employed. There are 24 hours in a day, whether you like it or not.
Exactly. I don't have extra hours. And I really enjoy working with the small business clients. Like I really love it. I absolutely adore it. I love to see, I love it when I get messages from my clients. Oh my God, I made a sale. Yes. And they're so excited over making a $7 sale on the internet. And I feel that joy, and I'm so happy for them. That is what fuels me.
And I think there's something about working with small businesses. They are so full of creativity because a lot of them are coming at it from a different place, and they know that they can be nimble and they can be quick and they can try things without it being the huge risk that it would be to a large corporation. If they try something and it falls flat, it can be very expensive. And that's not to say it's not expensive when you're a small business, but it's a little bit different. You just, especially when you're starting out and nobody's really paying too much attention to you yet.
Well, they don't have not only do they not have the finances to invest in something that's going to flop, they don't have the emotional bandwidth to be able to invest in something that falls down. That just doesn't work. Like, especially in the beginning when you're just starting out, you kind of need everything to work. And every small little, I hate the word failure, but every small failure of a marketing campaign just kind of makes them feel like, usually it makes them feel like this isn't for them. They're struggling. Like, it makes it look like they're so easy for everybody else. Why isn't it working for me? And there's so many emotional consequences to it.
Very true.
And I kind of like to help people avoid that or understand that these failures aren't really failures.
That's a huge thing. That's one of my big things, is that I don't believe in failures. I believe they're just learning experiences.
Absolutely.
You take from it a lesson and you apply it the next time that you try. And that's how we get better at what we do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really unfortunate that, the internet is a wonderful place, but it's also a disastrous place. There is so much information out there, so much valuable information, but you kind of got to weed through the crap first. And everybody kind of makes it seem like everything is super simple and easy. Yes. And if you just do this, you're going to make $1 million. And it's not quite that simple.
Yes, all those 6-figure launches out there. Yes. How do they happen?
With a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And never overnight.
No, and that's something that's really important to realize when you're starting out, is that 6-figure launches are a lot of hard work. There's no such thing as passive income in the sense that you don't have to do anything for it to happen. All that passive revenue takes a lot of hard work behind the scenes.
It absolutely does. And it takes some investment, some financial investment too. Like a 6-figure launch is going to cost you almost 5 figures.
Exactly. What you want to know is what the profit on that launch was.
That's what you really want to know.
That's right. So that's what we're hoping to help all of you listening with today. Not necessarily launches, but we want to help you cut through some of the noise. And, I think we all know at this point that we should have an email list. This is something that is becoming more and more apparent as people struggle with social media algorithms, selling on platforms that they don't own, and just realizing that you can't rely on those platforms to get your message out, not without some investment. I mean, you can pay for Facebook ads and you can do those types of things, and that's a valid marketing strategy. But at the end of the day, that list that you have is yours, and there's a lot of value in that. It is a direct pipeline to talk to the people who really like what you do. But where do you start? Or maybe you have started. Maybe you've got a list and it's got like 5 or 10 people on it, and you just don't know what to do next. Like, is it worth sending emails out to 5 or 10 people? Should you spend more time trying to get people on that list? How do you get people on that list? And what do you say to them when they're on the list? There's a lot that we could dive into here, but we're going to try and keep it really simple and without getting too much into the complications. And more advanced things can come in a later episode. But Trina, where do you suggest when people are just sitting there feeling overwhelmed by it all, like where do you suggest that they start?
Well, I suggest they take a deep breath.
Yes.
And take a really deep breath and remember that email is not as scary or as overwhelming as people tend to make it out to be. We write emails every day.
Yeah.
We write emails every single day.
Yeah.
And we write emails to people that we know. And the difference here is that when we're talking to our list, we forget that there's people at the other end of that. We forget that there's people that we may not know yet, but we want to know. So starting out, it's kind of important to really remember that these are people that you want to know. You can't sell to somebody that doesn't trust you, that doesn't know you.
Yep. My
biggest thing that I say to everybody is marketing is it comes down to one thing. It comes down to relationships.
Yes. I'm laughing because people who are longtime listeners know that my regular monthly guest host, Heather Travis, this is our thing. Research and relationships over and over and over.
Yes. It's just relationships. And I think people get overwhelmed and they get scared. Like, oh my God, I don't know what to say to these people. I don't know who they are, but you do know who they are. You just don't know them well enough yet.
Yes. That's a really good way to look at it.
So, because these are your customers, and if you've been doing business for any length of time, you have a pretty good idea of who's buying your stuff.
Yes. All
you got to do is kind of transition some of those, those personality types and those personality traits and put them into an avatar, which I really don't like getting into, but because everybody knows you need to have an ideal client avatar to be able to market your business effectively, but you kind of need to have this picture of this person that you're talking to when you're doing your emails. So
yes, and it can be more than one person. It doesn't have to be just one avatar. It can be multiple avatars.
It should definitely be multiple avatars, but when you're starting out, stick with one.
Yes.
Stick with one, get that one nailed down, and then build more out as you grow and as you see fit. But in the beginning, just start with one.
Okay, so let's say we know who that person is. We have a pretty good idea of who our avatar is. Where do we go next?
Well, the next thing you need to do is you need to figure out which email marketing platform you're going to be using.
Okay, and that sounds really complicated.
There are so many. And even in the last year or so, I swear there's a new one every day. In the beginning, when I started out, there was just like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, what's it? I've never heard of this platform. Like, I've never heard of these things. So one of the things that you need to kind of understand is how you're going to be using the platform.
Okay.
So are you just going to be sending out, a monthly newsletter with some pretty images and some text? Are you going to be sending out promotional materials? Are you going to be sending out, do you want to integrate it with your e-commerce system? Do you want to be sending out, like, there's some basic things that you need to figure out beforehand.
Okay.
And then once you know what you're going to be sending or what you want to be sending, then you can kind of look at the different platforms and go, okay, which one is right for me? Which can be overwhelming because there are so many. And if you're, spend any time in various business groups, people are going to recommend a couple of the big ones. MailChimp is popular. Constant Contact is popular. And then we've got some of the more higher end paid ones, which I'm not going to mention. But one of the things that we need to remember when we're picking a platform is that just because something is popular does not mean it's the best platform for you.
Yes. And this is something, as somebody who writes for a lot of different clients, I write in MailChimp, I write in ConvertKit, I write in Flowdesk, and all of them are great platforms. I have no issues with any of them, but there's definitely things about each one that I like more than the others, and there's definitely things that I don't like. And it really does come down to what kind of content you're going to be sending out.
It does, and there's a couple of different. I don't want to overwhelm people with too much information, but it also comes down to how you want to segment your list and how you want to be handling various automations.
Yes.
Some platforms are better at automations than others. Another thing that needs to be considered is how tech savvy are you? Like, is this something you're going to be handling yourself? Or is this something you need to, put off to somebody else? Because if you're not very tech savvy, then you're probably not going to want to dive into something like Active Campaign right away, or Infusionsoft, or sorry, it's Keep now, or Entreport, where you need some level of tech skills to be able to figure out what to do in these platforms. But at the same time, if you want to be doing some more advanced automations where, if somebody clicks on one thing in your email, you want them to go to a different email, MailChimp isn't going to cut it. MailChimp has very, very limited automation abilities. So you kind of need to know what you're doing or what you want to be sending, how you want to be utilizing the platform, how tech savvy you are, whether or not you want, most of them come with pre-made templates, but if you want templates, like some of them, you can get a free templates with a paid account. Some of them come with a free account.
Yes.
I always recommend, like most of the platforms available will give you a free trial.
Yes.
Sign up for all the free trials you can. Dump your email in there, send yourself a couple of test emails, spend some time figuring out if this is going to be the one for you. Because there are consequences of choosing the wrong platform.
Okay. So
and 9 times out of 10, within 3 years, a business, if they're taking their email marketing seriously, or even moderately seriously, they will outgrow platforms like MailChimp.
Mm-hmm.
And moving your list and all of your emails and everything over to something else is a big job. It is a big job.
The bigger your list, the bigger the job it is.
The bigger your list, the bigger the job. But if so that's on average. People outgrow their lists, outgrow their platforms about every 3 years. Okay. But if you're going faster than that, you're going to outgrow quicker.
Yeah, that's actually a much smaller number than I thought it would be. So that's interesting to know.
And most people just start out with like newsletters.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't know what to send yet. Newsletters are a perfectly acceptable way to start.
Okay. So for most of us in the creative niche that we're in here, most of us are Canadian that are listening. And, for us, we're not necessarily running a huge product-based business. We might be, but for a lot of us, it's more about communicating to people who enjoy what we create. So we're, artists, musicians, jewelry makers, crafters, that kind of thing. So it's unlikely, I'm not impossible, but unlikely that we're going to get to a point where we are having lists that are hundreds of thousands of people big. We're just, I think, at this stage where we're like, okay, I need to do something, but I don't know what that something should be in terms of what I should send out. And a newsletter, I think, is a really friendly way to start, like friendly to the person writing the newsletter, a way to start out, because it's something that you can do. It's just like writing a little letter to your mom, or not your mom, but like that. It's very low key, I guess is the best way. But is it the most effective way to start out?
That depends on the objective. Mm-hmm. First I want to back this up a little bit. Okay. I'll tell you right now that I have never worked with anybody with a list of 100,000 people.
Okay, cool.
Those numbers, while they seem very, doable, they're not. They're really not. Like, I've worked with clients for a long time, and the highest number of contacts that I've worked with is 10,000.
Okay.
And that's still big. And it's hard to manage. Yeah. It's hard to manage. So list numbers, like the number of people on your list, is way less important than who is on your list.
Thank you. Yes.
You could have a list of 10,000 people, but if none of them are opening your emails, it's all pointless.
It doesn't matter. And you're paying for those subscribers.
You are paying for those subscribers. So you could have a list of 50 people, and if they're all opening and engaging with your emails, that's going to be a way more profitable list than the 10,000 people that aren't opening.
How do we get those people I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. I was going to say, how do we get those people opening our emails? But let's back up a little bit. Let's start with we're starting with our list. We've got 5 or 10 people on it, and we've found a platform that we like. And we're going to put some information in the show notes for all of you to help you look at different platforms and things that can help you out, because we could do a whole episode on just choosing a platform. So that would be very overwhelming. Yes. But let's say you've found the platform that works best for you, and you've got your little list of 10 people. That's what was on my first list when I started. But you've never sent anything to them, like ever. And maybe some of them have been on that list for 2 or 3 years, but you've never even emailed them. So what do you do? Okay,
well, let's just assume for a minute that these people are just on your list. Let's just start from right beginning.
Yeah.
Let's forget the people that have been on your list for 3 years and we haven't sent them. I'll touch on that in a second.
Okay.
The first thing you need is a welcome sequence.
Okay. Can you send a welcome sequence out even if those people have been on your list for 3 years and you've never emailed them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But in order to do that, you kind of need to remind them who you are first. So I'll touch on that in a second.
Okay.
But let's go over what a welcome sequence is. So yes. A welcome sequence is a couple of emails sent out in sequence. So 2, 3, 4, I like to do 5 emails for a welcome sequence. And a welcome sequence just welcomes them to your list. It's exactly what it sounds like. You welcome them to your list. You let them know what to expect. That's email 1.
Okay.
Welcome aboard. Here's what you can expect from me. And you want to let them know how many emails they're going to receive. Okay. This is really important. If you let them know right away that they're only going to be receiving an email from you once a month, then they'll know that it's once a month when your email comes in. If you send emails out every day, you want to let them know that you send emails out every day. This is the biggest way to prevent unsubscribes, is by letting your list know what to expect from you.
Yes.
So if you're somebody who wants to send out 3, 4 emails a day, let them know. Don't recommend that tactic, but let them know in the first email.
Okay.
And then your second email, you're going to introduce them to who you are on a personal level. You want them to know this is you, and you want to be real with them. You want this. These are people. I like to have people envision they're having a conversation with somebody in person.
Yes. Okay.
You're at a networking event, and you want to get to know somebody. This is your elevator pitch.
Okay. And
your second email is your elevator pitch.
As creatives, this is our superpower. They're connecting with us and what we create. So I would think this would be a very important piece of the process, this second email.
It absolutely is. Like, we really need to be able to connect with people and have people connect with us. Yeah. So this email, and I don't want to overwhelm people or make them think that it's super, super important, because the more natural you are in this email, right, the easier it is to write and the easier it is to read. The more people will respond to it.
Yes.
So try not to get too hung up on, oh my God, what do I say? Just be yourself.
Yes. I remember hearing an interview with Stephen King, I think it was, where he writes all his books for his wife. Like, that's who he's writing for. And it just makes it so much easier for him to put the pen to the paper, because he's just writing a story for his wife.
Yeah, and absolutely.
So I thought that was a really great tip for when you get stuck in these situations of not knowing what to say. Pick somebody that you would feel comfortable talking to and just write to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It definitely helps a lot if you have somebody that you want to write to.
Okay. So email number 3.
Email number 3, you start to introduce your business. But not in a, hey, these are the products that I do. No, we want the backstory.
Okay.
How did you get started? Why do you do this? What's your why? Tell your audience. They want to know.
Yeah.
So you start telling them a little bit about why you got started, what it is that you do, what you're passionate about, why you do what you do. And then from there, you can, depending on how long you've been in business, what your story is, 3 emails is bare minimum. Mm-hmm. I like to do 5 because I like to throw in a little bit of drama.
Okay. So where do we get to the drama?
Okay. Well, email 3 is, you tell them a little bit about your story, and then you leave it on a cliffhanger. Okay. You go, okay, well, I'm going to tell you my next email. I'm going to tell you about this time that I royally screwed up, or something, some sort of drama point.
Okay.
Where, or you almost closed it down, depending on what your business is. And everybody has these stories. We don't like to tell them. But if you tell your audience that, it makes you more believable, it makes you more personable, and it makes them realize that you are an actual person.
Yes. People connect with story. That's why we
They
like
do
movies
connect
and
with
TV.
stories.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So you leave email 3 on a cliffhanger, and then you give them email 4, which answers the cliffhanger.
Okay.
And then they look forward to it.
Okay.
And then you kind of go, okay, well, yeah, in my last email, I told you about this time where I screwed this up. And then in email 4, you tell them what happened.
Okay.
This is what happened. This is what happened. Sometimes it's referred to as a soap opera sequence. Sometimes it's referred to, I call it an indoctrination sequence. Which sounds horrible, and I swear I use this ironically because I hate that I indoctrinate. We don't want to indoctrinate people, so I totally use this ironically. But you want them to fall in love with you. You have only so much time to make them do that. Right. So you want to make your first 5 emails, first 3 to 5 emails, really, really empowering, really, really powerful.
Okay. This is good stuff. I'm actually writing notes, you guys. I think this is good.
And then, you just kind of tell the story a little bit. So depending on how long your story is, you can wrap this up in 4 emails, or you can drag it out. But remember, you need to be telling them how many emails they're going to receive in the first email.
Right. Okay. So, what's interesting here is that, because I think one of the things that holds a lot of us up is we feel so icky about selling, but we've already sent 4, maybe 5 emails out, and we haven't tried to sell anybody anything yet.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then if you've done your job well with the storytelling, you can tie it into how you created your product or how you created your service. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you've got, some authority already.
Yep.
And people are going to go, oh, well, if you went through this, maybe I'm going through it too. Mm-hmm. How can I get that?
Yep.
You haven't sold anything.
No.
All you've done is told them how you created it and why you created it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So when you're sending this sequence out, this get to know you welcome sequence, how close together would you be sending these emails? Like, if you've told people they're going to hear from you once a month, are you sending one of these emails out for 5 months, or do you consolidate your welcome sequence into a slightly shorter time frame? Like, how would you go about doing that?
You definitely consolidate into a shorter time period. So these emails should be going out every day. So in my welcome email, in the majority of the campaigns that I create, when I create a welcome sequence, I go, okay, here's what's going to happen. In the first 5 days, you're going to hear from me every day.
Okay.
If you purchased a product, you're going to get an email from my e-commerce platform. If you purchased a course, you're going to get an email from my e-commerce platform. You're going to get an email from the course platform, and you're going to get an email from me welcoming you. It's not always like this.
Right.
So you just lay out every email that they're going to receive. And then after all of this initial overwhelming email, things are going to start tapering down. You're going to receive an email from me once a month, once a week, once every 6 months.
Now you've got your sequence set up. I think it's important because this might not be obvious to some people, but this is something that you can automate. So you're not manually sending this email out every time somebody joins your list.
Yes. Yes. If you are using any reputable email marketing service, you can automate this.
Right.
It can be ridiculously simple to automate.
Yes. You write those first 5 emails, sit down one afternoon, write the emails out, and then that's it. That's the only time you ever have to write them until you decide to revamp your. So I think that's really important. I think that's not obvious to a lot of people, actually. So we just want to make that really clear.
Right. You're right. And the best way to go about this is to have it set up so that, if you're onboarding a new client, if you've got a sign up form, if you've got any sort of sign up, you put these people directly into, you add them to this form, you have them add themselves to the form, or you manually add them to your platform and have it set to go automatically. So all you have to do is add the contact.
Right. So once you get those people on your list, you can set this up. They get the the welcome sequence going out automatically. And then once they get through that, I'm assuming at that point they kind of get onto your regular scheduled monthly or bi-weekly or daily email, whatever your frequency is. Okay.
Whatever your frequency is.
Okay. And I really like that you said to let people know how many emails they're going. Because I will say that for me, this is the biggest turnoff when I sign up for something is I'm the type of person who can handle one email a week from you. That's kind of my limit. I just don't have time to open emails every day from people. So if you tell me that straight up in your welcome email, I'm probably going to stick around. But if you don't tell me that and suddenly I'm just getting emails from you every single day or even sometimes twice a day, I'm out. I'm gone. You've lost me.
Yeah. And that's kind of how everybody is as a recipient. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tangent a little bit, and it's that is how everybody views it as a recipient, but as a sender, we let our own views on how we receive emails impact how we send.
I'm very guilty of that, 100%. Yep.
And best practices, we need to be sending at least once a week.
Okay.
If not more.
Okay.
And as long as we let people know what they can expect, they know what to expect and they're not going to unsubscribe. They're not going to be annoyed by it.
Okay. Is this something that, like, because I write for a lot of clients and they all have different frequency, and I know with my own businesses, this is something I really had to experiment with. I have one business. It's actually my biggest list. And we were sending out every 2 weeks, and we had really great engagement, great open rates. People were clicking through all the things that you want, and everybody was saying, you have to do it once a week, you have to do it once a week. So I upped the quantity, and we lost people like crazy. And I let it go for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then I was just like, we're just bleeding, and I dropped it back down to 2 weeks, and we settled back nicely to where we were, and I was happy. And yet I have other clients who send weekly and do extremely well. Like, does that sort of have something to do with maybe who your audience is a little bit too, or?
Absolutely. And because you'd been like with the first one, because you've been sending every 2 weeks for however long, that's what they've come to expect. Yeah. So when you change that on them, people go, what is this? I just received an email from you like yesterday.
Go away.
Even though it was 2 weeks ago, even though it was like 7 days ago. But because they've come to expect that, your emails go out on Tuesday and you're sending something out on a Friday, and they're going to go, what the hell is this? Why is this happening?
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So if you're going to change it, you do need to give them some notice.
Okay.
And absolutely, yes, it definitely depends on your audience. So best practices is once a week. This doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
Some people are more, and it depends on your business. Mm-hmm. E-commerce, you can send an email to those people every single day.
Oh my goodness,
and it is not going to matter.
If you're the Gap or Old Navy or something, I mean, yes.
If you're a service-based business, how much could you possibly have to say to send an email every day?
Yeah.
Not much, because you're probably selling.
Yeah, well, that's also part of it too. You kind of want to hit that balance of informing, entertaining, and selling, in there. So I don't know that I would have a lot to say every single day, but for some businesses, that's really valid. And I think retail and e-commerce businesses, 100%, especially like Old Navy. I'm just thinking of that because I hear this one all the time. They have their audience so well trained to be looking for coupons and deals that like they could send something out, like I said, daily, and people would open it.
They do.
Yeah,
I've actually blocked their emails, and I refuse to sign up for them again, because they send them out at 4:00 in the morning, and they send them out 3 times a day.
Oh God, I didn't realize it was that much. That's a lot.
Yeah, sometimes you can get them up to 3 times a day.
Okay.
But yes, they do have their audience trained. They're looking for coupons. And that's an important thing to note, is that if you are e-commerce, if you are retail, you can get away with giving away with sending emails every day. You can get away with selling almost every email because your audience expects it.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. There's so much psychology that goes into this too.
There is.
But that's like a really good point. And it's not just for email marketing, but just marketing in general, is that it sounds a bit icky, but you really do have this ability to train your audience, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Like if you train them the wrong way, it can be very hard to course correct.
Yes.
But if you train them in the right way, it can be really valuable to you as the business owner. So that's something to think really carefully about. And when we were just talking about the email frequency, I never even thought about that until you just mentioned it. I had trained them to expect every 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I went, hey, I'm changing it up.
Yeah.
So yes, that's something to think about too. So that's good advice.
Absolutely. You definitely can train them to what you need them to be. And if you're going to make changes, definitely let them know.
Okay. So they've got a list. Their best friends are on it. Their mom is on it. They've got their welcome sequence set up. They're going to send an email every week once they get through that sequence. But now they need to get more people on their list, people who want to buy their paintings or their pottery or whatever it is you're making. How do we get them on the list? How do we get them on? Like, this is the challenge. How do I get people to sign up for my list?
Yes. And if you follow conventional wisdom, you're going to create a lead magnet and you're going to post this on your website and you're going to give it away for free.
Okay. So what's a lead magnet real quick?
A lead magnet is something something of value that you give away for free. Okay. In exchange, it's a bribe is what it comes down to. If we're being honest, it is a bribe. I'm going to give you this thing and you're going to give me your email address so I can sell you more things later.
Okay.
And this is what conventional wisdom will tell you to do. However, it's not working so well anymore. The marketplace has changed. And because this is a very, very prominent way of doing things, we have to get a little bit creative. So most people will do one of two things. They'll create like an ebook. They'll offer, or they'll offer a discount.
Okay.
Or they'll give free shipping.
Okay.
These are three very, very common things.
Yes.
Which we see everywhere.
I design a lot of ebooks for clients who use them for exactly that purpose, recipe ebooks. So
and because the audience, like everybody's audience, because everybody's been told that we can create these ebooks really quickly. There's a lot of really crap products out there. There's a lot of really poorly done lead magnets. So these aren't really effective anymore.
Okay.
We want something that we know is worthwhile.
Yes.
And if they're giving it away for free, there are a number of different variables as to why this has changed. Ad costs, increased audience intelligence, various things. But free lead magnets aren't necessarily the way to go. I do not, and this is where I'm going to give you my very controversial opinion, I do not believe that we should be giving discounts on our products or services.
I don't know that it's that controversial. Well, I agree with you. So this goes back to what we were just talking about, training your customer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you want to devalue yourself and if you want them to expect from you discounts every time you turn around, go ahead, offer them a discount. But that is exactly what they're going to expect. So offering a discount for them to sign up is just getting you, I like to call them dollar store clients.
Yes.
They expect dollar store value.
Yeah. Yes, I 100% agree. I only send one discount out for my art business. I only send one discount out a year for Black Friday, and my email subscribers get the best discount. It's better than what the general public will get, but that's it. Like,
yes,
that's all. And it's interesting. When you're creative and when you're in an artistic field, I think a lot of your I have subscribers who wait for my Black Friday email, but then don't use the code because they want to support me at full price. And I've had people tell me that you shouldn't be discounting. I don't want to pay. I don't want to use the discount. And so that's something to think about when you are setting this up. Now, I would think in a full-scale e-commerce situation like the Old Navy's and the Gaps, that's a different marketing strategy. It's not really the people we're talking about here.
It is a different marketing strategy. So I'm not gonna. I'm gonna assume that your audience isn't in e-commerce.
No, we're
so I'm just gonna stop.
creatives. Yeah,
yeah. So, and unfortunately, this is a market like small scale creatives. It is a market that is a little bit difficult to create a lead magnet for, to create an opt-in offer. So we're going to stop calling them lead magnets. We're going to call them opt-in offers.
Okay.
And this is something that you're going to, offer in exchange for an email address in the beginning.
Okay.
If you have a smaller product, a smaller offering. So if you're a writer, maybe a chapter in your new book. If you create art, maybe a digital print of something that, one of your popular art pieces. You do have to get a little bit creative in what you're going to offer. And the key to this is offering something of value, of a significant value. People want it to be valuable to them. And it has to be something that your audience wants.
Right.
So it's something that you've done is really, really popular, is really great. Maybe something that you're not offering anymore. Give them a digital print.
That's a good idea. Yeah. The chapter for a writer is a great idea. It hooks them right into your book that you have.
Exactly. Give them a chapter in the middle of the book. And then they'll want to know what is going on. Like, how did we get here and what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
And I like to use what's called micro offers.
Okay. What are those?
So a micro offer is a valuable product that you sell at a significant discount, but it's not advertised as a discount. So there's discounting yourself, there's offering a discount and saying, hey, yeah, get 10% off, or there's giving somebody a lot of value for a little price. There is a significant difference in the psychology of how it's received.
Okay. Could you give us an example of something like that might work? I'm trying to think what
well, let's say an artist is selling a piece for $200. Okay. It's a top seller.
Okay.
And they sell a lot of it. They have to make it all the time, whatever their process is. And it's been really popular, but they're no longer selling it. Okay. They've taken it off, but they have a digital print. So now we've got this $200 product that we're going to give somebody for $25.
Okay.
And because it doesn't need to be a lot of work, but it does need to be something that has a lot of value. And I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well.
No, I'm just thinking about how this could work. So I'm thinking I do digital prints and I do physical prints and I do greeting cards and stickers and things like that. So I'm thinking, if you had something that, let's say you do prints of the Eiffel Tower, okay? Like you have these beautiful prints of the Eiffel Tower, they're printed on a beautiful paper and you roll them up in mailing tubes, you send them out, and you charge $150 for one of these prints, and they're big, you put them on your wall. And there's a couple, so you could offer, like you said, a digital version of that, so the person gets it right away. They don't have to wait for it to be shipped and mailed and everything, and it's on them to print it. And you're selling that for, like you said, $25. So a significant discount. It's the same image. It's still something that was created by you, but it's much less expensive. And maybe the only way to get that digital print is to sign up for your email list, and then you get the opportunity to buy it for $25. Maybe it's not available on your website or on Etsy or wherever you sell. And I think another way you could do that is if you have something that you sold, it did well, and now you don't want to sell it anymore. And so now it's only available through this offer, like a digital version of it or something like that. So there's a bit of not a scarcity mindset, maybe a little bit of scarcity, but am I getting there?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With the exception of this isn't something that you advertise on your website. This is the only thing you should be advertising.
Right. Okay.
Not the only thing, but it should be front and center.
Right.
So when somebody lands on your homepage, this is the offer they're presented with.
Okay.
Instead of the pop-up, like the traditional pop-up that says, hey, sign up for my newsletters.
Yes.
We're going to go, hey, do you want this beautiful print sent to your email right now? Take it to the printer and print it yourself, whatever size you want.
It could be on your wall tonight.
Yeah. That gets them to purchase, gets them to pull out their wallet. So there's some psychology at play here. It gets them to pull out their wallet. It gets them invested in your art, and it gets them on your list.
Yes. So trifecta there. Very
Yeah. And once somebody has already purchased from you, it's easier to get them to purchase from you again.
Yes, absolutely. That first connection where they spend money is the hardest one to get.
It is. So we don't want to wait for that anymore. We want them to start buying from us immediately.
Okay. So there's some good stuff there. Now, we just mentioned pop-ups, and It's 2021. Where are we at with pop-ups? They used to be everywhere. I'm not seeing them as much as I used to. I know Google made some noises about pop-ups not that long ago, but I don't really know what all was involved with it. So are pop-ups still useful? Do they still work? Should we be using them?
Pop-ups are still very, very useful. They're still used a lot. They're still used very predominantly in e-commerce, first of all, but there's no reason why we can't use them as creative businesses, as service-based businesses, as long as we're using them conscientiously and in tune with not annoying our readers. So the point is not to annoy our readers. And instead of having pop-ups, now we're, they'll, I'm going to age myself here, but like back in the 90s, pop-ups were just like, boom, you land on a website and it's just like, boom, 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 boom. Here, do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want this? And they're just so annoying all the time. Yes. We don't want to annoy people like that anymore. We don't want them to land on our website and we have a pop-up and go, hey, yeah, do you want to buy this? Ooh, you want to buy this? Ooh, how about this? Sign up for this. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to give them some time, at least a few seconds, to land on our website, take a quick peek.
Right. Acclimatize themselves.
Yes. And then I'm a huge fan of what's called exit intent pop-ups. Mm-hmm. So when somebody goes to leave your website, that's when it pops up.
Yes.
And it goes, hey, wait, before you go, you might be interested in this.
Those are the ones as a consumer that I like the best, because I've finished what I came to your site to do, or what I think I came to your site to do. And now you're just giving me this gentle little reminder as I'm about to leave that, hey, if you want more information, or if you want to give me your email, here's how you can get more, or So those are the ones I tend to sign up for more.
They are very, very popular. They're very, very effective. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, these types of things are going to become more difficult to use as our demand for more privacy on the web increases. Exit intent, it tracks your mouse.
Yes.
It tracks your mouse on the screen. That's a whole other ballgame, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But, we should be utilizing these things while we can.
And that's the thing with all of these things that we talk about, particularly from a tech perspective, is the digital content space changes very, very rapidly. And what worked a month ago or 6 months ago may not work in a few months from now. And it's constantly evolving. And that's just something you, as a business owner, that you need to have some awareness of and be on. You need to pay some attention to it, whether you like it or not. Unfortunately, it's part of being a business owner.
Yes. The tech of things does change. And this is one of the things that I kind of pound into people a little bit. Instead of asking, what's going to change, we need to ask what's going to stay the same.
And that's where things like
hasn't changed.
Yeah, and that's where things like stories and connection and relationships, those do not change. They're the basis for everything that you do as a business owner.
Yes.
So, Okay, so pop-ups are still useful. Let's use them while we can, and use them in a way that isn't overly aggressive to the people landing on our website.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else we can do to try and get those people on our lists? One of the points that you had mentioned before we came on the air was lead generation on every page and profile.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if you do have you shouldn't be advertising your main, newsletter sign up as your primary lead generation, but it should still be available.
Right.
So at the bottom of your web page, on every page, you should be having, sign up for my newsletters.
Okay.
It does need to be a little bit more creative than sign up for my newsletters. Get a little creative with it. And sign up to receive exclusive information about, who I am, what I do, things like that. And it should be on every page of your website.
Yeah. At
the bottom in the footer. It should definitely be on every social profile that you have.
Yes, definitely.
It should be available and ready, but you shouldn't be expecting people to use it. It just needs to be available for them in case they want it.
It's just one of those things that if people are looking for it, they should be able to locate it quickly.
Yeah, it's like getting a glass of water in the restaurant.
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to drink it, but in case you're thirsty, it's there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, so you do want to just make sure that if people want to sign up and they've dived really deep into your website and they're like, oh, where did that pop-up go? Oh, here, I can sign up over here. All good. Yes. So that's important too. Okay. So there's lots of different ways there that you can start building your list. And a lot of them are not that difficult. This all sounds really difficult from a technical perspective, but they're, depending on the type of website that you're on, whether it's WordPress, Shopify, there's all kinds of plugins and additional things that can help you. And very often the newsletter provider that you have signed up for will have tools available to help you put all these things to create landing pages and pop-ups and sign up boxes that you can use. And they're really quite straightforward to put in place. So
yes.
Yeah. Now, there are some no-nos to list building, especially, and we're going to talk about this from a Canadian perspective, but there are some rules and regulations that you need to be very aware of as a business owner when it comes to your email list and how people sign up for it and what you do with their email address once you have it and what you're allowed to send them. So let's just talk about that a little bit first here.
Okay, so one of the things that is very, very prominent is as Canadians, we tend to see our American counterparts doing certain things and we try to emulate it. Mm-hmm. However, in Canada here, up until, I'm going to throw some acronyms at you guys now, up until GDPR, Canada had the strongest anti-spam legislation in the world. And this is covered by the Canadian anti-spam legislation, or CASL for short. So we can't emulate what the US does. Yeah. We do have to be careful because the consequences of going against that are quite severe. Mm-hmm. And this came into effect in 2014.
Yes, I remember it well.
It was a stressful time.
It was.
We have to be very careful about how we manage our list and how we manage our email marketing. That word in particular needs to be paid attention to because there's a difference between marketing emails and, say, transactional emails. And I'll go over that in a second. Yes. But before we get to that, we need to have our legislation is broken down into two different types. So we have, I'm going to back this up a little bit. How we're allowed to engage with our email list is broken down into types of consent. Okay. So we have what's called express consent and we have implied consent.
Yes.
In order for us to send marketing materials to a contact, we need to have their express consent to send them. Which comes into play when you're using, if you're using an email marketing platform, when somebody signs up using the form that you provide, that is express consent.
Yes.
If somebody purchases a product from you, that is implied consent.
Yeah, and this can be very confusing to a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah. So
thankfully, the website, I don't have the link in front of me, but if you Google Canadian anti-spam laws, I think it's stopspam.gc.ca or something like that.
We'll find it and we'll put it in the show notes.
They're very good at explaining it in easy to understand terms. It's the only government website I've ever seen that makes things really simple. But the important thing to remember is that you need to ask permission to send marketing materials. So if somebody purchases from you, that gives you implied consent. At that point, you can ask them if they'd like to receive your marketing materials.
Yes. And people will often do that through like a checkbox or something like that. You know,
Yes.
And you've seen it when you sign up for things. Would you like to receive other emails from us? And it's a checkbox that you check off.
Yes. Yes. So when they're purchasing from you, say if you're purchasing on your website, you can add that little checkbox that says, hey, would you like to receive this? Right. And then all of a sudden you've got express consent.
Express consent. Now, implied consent is, so if somebody buys something from you and let's say you're on Shopify or something like that, and you send an automated email to them that says, you have purchased this is your total, you know, it's like a receipt or an invoice or whatever. Yes. That's okay. Like you don't. That
falls under a transactional email.
Right. Okay.
So you can send them that. You can send them. You can say. You can send them a discount after the fact. Say, hey, thanks for being a customer. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't asked them at that point to come up with, to agree to be on your marketing list, then you kind of have to stop.
That's the end of the conversation until they contact you again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really important to understand. I think also we should just point out here, because I know a lot of people sell on Etsy, and Etsy also has some very strict rules around emailing people outside of the site. So if you're selling on any third-party websites, it's really important that you read your terms of service and understand what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do with emails. So that's another thing that you have to be aware of.
Yes, because everybody does have their own rules.
Yeah.
Etsy is a little bit. I know they've changed a lot of things since the last time I've worked with them, but they've definitely. I don't really want to speak too much on it, but
it changes all the time. That's you need to stay up to date on your terms of service.
You need to read the terms of service, regardless of which platform you're using.
Definitely. So let's say that you're selling at a farmer's market or craft market, and you've got people coming through your booth, and maybe you have like a clipboard off to the side, or you have a fishbowl or something where people can drop their business card if they want to sign up for your list, or they can write their email down on your clipboard. Is that okay to add to your marketing list? Is that considered express consent at that point, or is it implied?
A handwritten list which says it must say that you will be receiving marketing materials.
Okay.
It actually, you need to let them know this is what you're signing up for.
Okay.
So a handwritten list where you're collecting email addresses, absolutely, totally fine.
And would you hang on to that list? Okay,
you betcha.
Okay.
You keep that list. Or when you enter them into your email marketing platform, you add little notes and you go, this person signed up at this craft fair on this date using this form. This form is styled or stored in this file folder in this drawer. Okay. So you know where the information is, should anything happen.
Okay. What about... we were talking about the business card in the fishbowl type of thing too.
Business cards in the fishbowl is kind of a touchy. It's a touchy thing. I don't recommend it because usually we're doing that for a draw.
Right.
And then if you're entering them into a draw, just because somebody gives you their business card is not implied consent.
Okay.
Just because an email address is available to you is not implied consent.
Right. Okay.
So you do need to be very cautious of that. So I can give you my email address, but if you send me marketing materials, I'm going to mark it as spam.
Yeah. And that's something really important to know. If you add somebody to your list who's not expecting to be added to your list, it makes them very grumpy with you. Okay. So
exactly.
That's
I know
not
people
what you
always
want.
look at me funny. Like, why would you do this? This is your job. I'm like, I know the rules. And if you're breaking the rules, you're making me look bad. So I'm going to mark you as spam and report you.
Yeah. So you don't want that. And if that happens through, I know platforms like MailChimp and Flowdesk and some of the more lower level email platforms, and I'm sure the higher level ones do, if you get marked as spam too frequently by like when people unsubscribe for your list and they mark off that they didn't sign up or that this is spam, your email service provider takes note of that. And after a certain number of strikes, or if it becomes too heavily weighted in one direction. I mean, because there's always going to be one or two people who are just like, I don't remember signing up for this, even though they did. And, but if it starts to become a recurring issue, they will take notice of that.
They will start docking your deliverability.
Mm-hmm.
So deliverability, it determines your ability to reach inboxes, not
Yes.
promotions folders, not spam folders, but inboxes.
Yeah, and that's
So
key.
the more spam complaints you receive, the more reports that you receive, the more likelihood that that deliverability is going to start going down, and then you get bumped from the inbox to the promotions folder, from the promotions folder to the spam folder. And if you're in the spam folders, nobody's seeing your emails.
That's right. So that's not what you want. And
Yeah,
I think
and
it's
worst
really,
case scenario, they can shut you down.
yes. And at the end of the day, this is not what you want. You want people on your list who want to be there.
Absolutely.
So it does you no good to just add people to your list simply so you have numbers. That doesn't, it's not useful, and it doesn't make you any money. So, so another question I have about express and implied consent is, let's take social media, for instance. Let's say you're having a conversation with somebody, and I see this quite frequently on Instagram. I know that you're not on Instagram, but, you know, someone will share a story on Instagram or a post and be like, DM me to sign up for my newsletter, and somebody will send them a direct message with their email address, and then they'll add them to their list. To me, this is very shaky ground.
It is very shaky ground. Yes, it's a little bit of a gray area, because you are asking people for permission to email them, and they are providing their email.
Right, but you don't have like, how do you prove that down the road?
Well, exactly. I mean, you could take a screenshot.
Yes,
and you could keep a file of this stuff, and that's important. Like, if you have, like, if anything comes down, if you're, one of these contacts marks you as spam, and your email platform, they will investigate. They will say, who is this contact? How do they get on your list? And if you can't prove to them how they got on your list, they'll shut you down.
Right.
So as long as you can keep records of this, you take a screenshot of the post where you've asked people, you take a screenshot of the DMs that you received, you should be fine.
You could also just send them a link to, I know Instagram's a little hard, because if you don't have 10,000 followers, you don't have the swipe up feature that allows you to link directly to a website, but you could DM them a link to your landing page or something in that message. You could say, hey, here's the link to sign up. And then they're going through the right form, and they're checking the box and giving the permission.
Yes, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. No, I don't have Instagram, and I refuse to get it. So I have no experience. I don't know what you're really talking about, so I can only kind of visualize. And I assume that people are just like, and I have to assume that these are people that don't actually have an email marketing platform.
They tend, I think, to be people who are starting out, or who are, and I've seen people do this on Facebook and other social platforms as well. And I think you just have to be careful with it. You just don't want to, record that email on your list under false pretenses. So
no. And I think I am of the opinion that even if you're using the wrong platform for you, even if you're using a crappy platform, even if you're not going to stick there forever, there are enough free platforms out there to get you started that you do not need to use, don't be using your regular inbox. Okay. You need to be using an email marketing platform, because the number one thing in Canada is you need to have an unsubscribe link. Yes. Your emails, your marketing emails must have an unsubscribe link. They must include a couple of different things. So unsubscribe link, they must include information about you as a business. So your name and your contact information and a mailing address.
Yes. And this is a sticky point for a lot of people. I know a lot of people don't want to put if they work from home, they don't want to put their home address on. But there are services out there that can help you with that.
You can get a virtual address. You can get a PO box. I'll tell you right now, I've had my home address on my emails for 11 years, and I've never had anybody come up my door. So,
knock on wood. So.
Knock on wood. You do need to have an address. Yeah. You do need to have an unsubscribe link. Yes. And it can't just be, hey, email me back to unsubscribe. No, it needs to be an actual link. They should not be required to contact you.
Right.
And that unsubscribe link should remove them from your list regardless.
Yes.
It should just be one and done.
Yeah. And there's nothing, you're going to have unsubscribes, and that's perfectly fine. As we've said earlier, you don't want people on your list who don't want to be there. They're not going to buy from you, and they just cost you money every month, because you do pay for how many subscribers you have on your list. So just consider it a little bit of a gift when they leave. It's like, okay, you didn't want to be here. That's fine. And focus on the people who do want to be there.
Yes. Okay.
So when you're in those situations where you're on a third party, like Etsy or eBay or there's all kinds of third party marketplaces popping up since the pandemic started. A lot of people are trying to create virtual markets and things like that. Or you're at an in-person event. Like, what are some ways that you can kind of coax people onto your list without breaking terms of service or without having to not being able to have your website right in front of them, kind of thing? Are there some ways that people can get that, you can get that information, or are we?
Well, digitally, it's a little bit more difficult. Well, actually, it's not. Digitally, you can make it a requirement that they have to provide their email address for a receipt.
Okay.
Or an invoice. And then that becomes implied consent, and you hope at that point that they'll subscribe on a full term basis.
Okay.
In-person events is a little bit more tricky. You do have to get creative. A lot of people, they do draws and stuff. So going back to the business card in a fishbowl, don't do that. Say enter your email list to be entered in a draw.
Okay.
By the way, you're also going to be receiving marketing materials.
Yes. Okay.
And that makes it a little bit easy. And then, if you're going to do a draw, of course. Okay. If not, if you're, and it feels weird talking about events right now because we're not doing them. But
I know.
But if you are somebody who does a lot of events, you could make it, hey, sign up to know where we're going to be next.
That's a great way to word it.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is something that's really successful for a lot of people, because a lot of people do like to follow people. They want to know where you're going to be next. They want to know, oh, you're going to be here. Maybe I don't have the money right now.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
I want to know where you're going to be next time.
And that falls into the kind of content that you can send out in your newsletters.
Yes.
It's like where you're going to be, what upcoming events you have, markets, whatever, things like that. So that's a good one. I like that. Okay, so we've got our list ticking along, and now we have to figure out what we're going to send to all these people. And this could be an entire episode. Let's just get people started here. They've got their list. It's growing nicely. They've got their opt-in offers. They have got their welcome sequence ticking along. So anybody who signs up gets the 5 email welcome sequence. Okay, what happens when that email sequence is over? What are some of the things that we can send to our audience, that we can talk to them about? And we just mentioned one right there, letting them know where you're going to be, where they can find you, like what upcoming events you have, markets that you have, all those types of things. So that's one. What other kinds of things can we do? And when do we start selling?
That's a good question that I get asked a lot of, and I'm a huge fan of never. If you're doing it right. That doesn't mean not asking for the sale. The sale always needs to be asked for. But how we go about asking for the sale is a little bit different, and how I think that it should be done, and what has worked for my clients and has worked for the people that I work with. But I want to back that up real quick. When you're just starting out, everybody gets a little bit, intimidated by the word segmenting.
Yes.
But it's important. And if you're just starting out, it's the easiest time to put it together.
Yes.
And before your list gets too overwhelming. And some simple strategies for segmenting your list is purchasers versus non-purchasers. You can segment them by location, depending on how you do business. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be sending, let's say, you're at an event in Saskatchewan, you don't want to be advertising that to people in BC.
Yes.
There's no point. Yep. People in BC aren't going to hop on a plane and go to Saskatchewan to visit you. So by location is an easy way. By interest levels. So if somebody has purchased a particular product, say you're a mixed media artist, you work in many different mediums, you're going to have people that want paintings. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't want some sculptures.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
You can separate them by product type.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of do what's best for you. But if you start this in the beginning and expand it as your list grows, it becomes easier to manage.
I've also done it by opt-in offer, so I can see
Yes.
what got people to sign up. And that has been a really good way for me to see which opt-ins work the best. But it also tells me a little bit about that person who signed up. It's like, oh, okay, this person was really interested in a download of inspirational quotes, but this person wanted like some information that taught them how to do something. So
Yes.
that's been useful. The location one in my main business, we use that all the time. I don't think we could function without having our list segmented by province. Super helpful. So yeah, I think that really depends on who your audience is. But as Trina just mentioned, it is so much easier to do from the beginning.
It's way easier to do when you've got 10 people on your list versus when you've got 100 people on your list.
So when you start that list, start thinking about the different ways that you might want to look at your list down the road when you have more than 10 people on it.
Yes.
Is it going to be by location? Is it going to be by interest? Is it going to be the kind of product that they like to buy? And segmenting can also be really useful later when you are maintaining the health of your list. I use segmenting to help me see how many people have opened emails in the last 6 months and who are dormant and things like that. And that can help you with things like sending little sort of "are you still there" kind of emails. But that gets a little more complicated. We'll talk about that another time.
Yes.
But yeah, segmenting is segmenting didn't become a thing in my other business until our list was already at 5,000. And at that point, I just wanted to cry because I just thought this is so useful and I have no idea how to put it in place for these 5,000 people that are already on the list. So much easier to do it when you have 10.
It is. And it doesn't have to be complicated either. Just a simple matter of in the beginning, just purchasers versus non-purchasers, or people that signed up from this lead magnet versus this lead magnet opt-in offer. Yeah. And it will help you keep your list more engaged if you're sending people things that they actually want to hear from.
And most of the email platforms out there, I think almost all of them at this point, even the free ones, have some basic segmenting that you can put in place. Really very simple. It's almost as easy as just using tags. Yeah,
contact tags. You don't need to create different lists. Just tag them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've got some basic segmenting in place. And now we're trying to figure out what we're going to send out to them. So we've talked about things like where you're going to be, at what point is it okay to start selling. And as you said, I really liked what you said there. Never. And I'm a big believer in this. I'm a big believer in that if you talk to your people and you're interesting and you provide them with value, the selling happens. Yes, you do need to ask for the sale. You need to remind them that you do have things for sale, but it doesn't have to be buy all the time, or because that most of us feel really uncomfortable doing that, first of all. And second of all, there does come a saturation point with your users of how much of that they can take, and it's different for everybody. But so that's really interesting, in that if you're doing this right, you don't have to be selling all the time.
No, I think I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning. We need to remember these are people on the other end of our emails. And we as human beings do not like to be sold. We love to buy. We love to buy, but we don't like to be sold. Yeah. And we need to approach that in the same way. So we need to talk to people like they're human beings. And we need to talk to people like we know who they are, or we want to know who they are. We need to relate to them. And I actually have a framework that I teach all of my clients for this. And I call it the CARES framework. And the acronym is absolutely not a mistake. In order to sell to somebody, before we can sell to somebody, we need to show them that we care. So this is an acronym for the email sequence that if we are going to sell, that I recommend we use. Yes. And the first email is called a call out email. So we call out to the people that we want to speak to. We call out to the people that we have a product, and we speak to people on a personal level. We're not calling people out. We're calling out to them. We're like, hey, audience type. We're just like, hi, I'm over here. We're going to talk to them on a personal level. Do you struggle with this problem? Do you, want to have this thing in your life? We're just going to speak to them on a very personal level. Okay. And maybe agitate the problem a little bit that they're facing, if they're facing a problem. Like some business types don't solve a problem. They bring joy.
Yes.
So we're going to agitate the problem of not having that joy in their life. But not in a negative way. And I don't like using those words because they do have a very negative connotation to them, but we don't want to do it in a negative way.
Okay.
I mean, yes, we see people all the time pushing pain points. Nobody likes to have their pain points pushed all the time. But after we've gotten their attention with the call out email, then we can send them what's called an assurance. This is where we make a promise to them that, hey, you've got this problem or this lack of joy in your life. I've got the solution. It's right here, but we're not going to tell them what it is yet. We're just going to tell them that we've got it. It exists.
Okay.
And then after that is the reveal email. So we've got CAR, reveal. And now we're going to reveal the solution, the problem, the product that we've got. We're not selling it yet. We're just telling them about it.
Okay.
It's here. This is what it is. This is what it does. This is how it can make you feel. And then we're not going to do much of anything. We're going to actually engage with the audience by asking them some questions. So we're not selling them yet, which gets people thinking because they're like, "What? I wanted to buy that. You didn't tell me how I could buy that." No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to tell you how you can buy that yet. We want to engage with our audience. And more importantly, we want to give them an opportunity to engage with us, which means we ask them questions and we ask them to respond to them.
Yeah, that's really interesting because not very many people ask you to respond to an email, or they might have a thing at the bottom that says, hey, reach out anytime you want to chat kind of thing, but nobody does.
Nobody does. And that's kind of the thing. But the fact that it's offered does give the audience a little bit of an impression that you want to speak to them.
Yeah, but very few emails actually ask a question. Like,
yeah.
That you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I because it's great to see that, okay, that's great that they want to hear from me, but I don't have the slightest idea what I would email this person back about. Like, but if they say to you like, hey, I would love to hear about your dog's favorite biscuit, maybe you sell dog treats or something like that. Like, tell me
exactly
what is your favorite way to get I'm saying this because my dog is behind me right now making a lot of noise. But what's your favorite way to get your dog excited for, I don't know, I'm pulling stuff out of my off the top of my head here, but like a specific question. And if you're somebody who sells dog biscuits, okay, people love to talk about their pets, they love to talk about their dogs. Like, give them an opportunity to tell you about, oh, my Rocky does this, or that kind of thing, and that sets off that whole chain reaction of them feeling like they're connected to you, like you really are interested in them. And you said at the beginning of this episode that these are people that you don't know yet, but you want to know.
So you need to make them feel like you want to know them.
That's how you get to know them.
That is exactly how you get to know them. You ask them some questions. I'm just pulling up my cheat sheet here so I can go through this a little bit better. Like, I do have a training available on this, and it is currently free. It won't be free for long though. Just so everybody knows that if they want this, they should probably get on it quickly. But yeah, the interactive conversation, it needs to be an interactive discussion. And it needs to make them feel heard and appreciated, like their opinion matters. And then they're more inclined to trust you.
And that's the key. It all comes down to trust.
And that's the key. And once you've done these 4 things, once you've shown them that you care, then we can sell.
There you go.
And at the end of it, we're actually not selling. So this is not just here's my thing, here's how you buy it. No, this is, you're going to describe the product as the solution to the pain point that they're facing. And you're going to just describe it in a way that makes people want to actually purchase it. And if you've done your job up to this point with the first 4 email types, then the sell email should be really, really simple. It should literally just be, hey, this product is amazing. This is how it can make you feel. This is how it can solve this problem, or this is how it can do this. And you want to focus on the features and the benefits, the emotional benefits of the product. And then you go, if you'd like this product, here's how you buy it. That's it. And it's not even a really much of a selling point. It's kind of akin to walking into a clothing store and yeah, you need a pair of jeans. There's 4 pairs of jeans over there. Take your pick. Nobody's selling them to you. They just exist. You just now know how to buy them.
I think the training you're referring to is how to create content that sells.
Yes.
Okay. So we are going to, Trina's given me a couple of really useful links here, and we're going to have those in the show notes for you all. So if you are interested in that, she has a video on how to choose an email marketing platform, which is what we talked about back at the beginning of the episode. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And then she does have her training on how to create content that sells with the CARES method, and I'll put a link to that. That's the one that is just available for a limited time. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, you probably want to get on that one quickly, and those will be really helpful to everyone if you want to dive more into what we've been talking about here. This has been so useful. It's very rare that I make notes during an episode, seeing as I'm going to listen to it 2 or 3 times during the editing and everything, but I'm just like, oh, this is good. I have to write this down. There's tons of information that we've given you here, and there is way more that we could dive into. And Trina, you are welcome back anytime that you would like to come back if you want to dive into things like funnels and more complex digital marketing techniques that we don't want to scare people off with right now. But
we could have a whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do a whole episode on content. We could do a whole episode on digital funnels, all of that type of stuff. But you just need to get started before you go crazy. You don't need to overwhelm yourself with all of that right now. At this point, you just want to focus on finding those people who love what you do and giving them a way to connect with you by joining your list, by sending them emails and having a conversation with them. And I just love what you said at the beginning about these are people that you don't know yet, but you want to get to know them better. And just think of everybody who subscribes as a person that is just waiting for you to get them to get to know them better. I think that's such a really great way to think about it. We are passionate about what we do as creatives. And if there's one thing that really connects one person to another person, it's seeing or feeling or hearing that passion come through. So don't be afraid to get that out there to your audience. That's why they connect with you. And I don't know, for me, somebody could be passionate about something that I really am not that interested in, but if I can see and feel and get a vibe for how passionate they are, I'll listen to them all day, because it's just really cool to hear people being passionate about the things they love. So don't be afraid to embrace that side of it and show it to your audience. They'll respond to it. We've given everybody a lot to think about. Trina, where can people find you online if they want to connect or if they want to discuss working with you?
I recommend sending me an email, first of all.
Okay.
I'm not very good on the social networks. I have them. I have profiles on both Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook at Trina Waller Redemption Marketing, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Trina Waller Marketing. However, if you don't hear from me after sending me a message on there, maybe send me an email. I try really hard, but I'm just not consistent enough. And you can reach me by email at hello@trinawaller.com.
Awesome. So yeah, please do. And your website is trinawaller.com. If people want to go,
trinawaller.com.
Yeah,
yes.
And we'll have links to her. We'll have all these links in the show notes, including links to the trainings that we suggested and recommended that you can go check out. But Trina, thank you so much for being here. This was fantastic. You have given our listeners a lot of information here that I know is going to be very useful to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic.
Awesome. I'm glad you had a good time. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening this week. And I will be back next week with another new episode. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshelookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshelookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshelookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.